Perfect. Alrighty. So one of the things that I'm seeing come up quite a bit recently is people wondering how they can automate the process for removing access to a product. And I think I was pondering this a fair bit this morning as to like why this seems to be a pretty frequent question, I'll say. And I think it's because MemberVault is being used more and more for membership style products than it ever was in past. There's a need, I think, for people to end access after somebody cancels a membership, but not right on the day of cancellation, for example. Or there's also an excitement around limited time access products, right? So I talked to somebody, I think a couple days ago, maybe on Monday, wants to do a limited time access challenge. And basically they only have access to that challenge for, I think, a week, they said, and then they lose access to it. So they need to do all the things they need to do in that week. And if they don't, then they don't have access to it anymore and they're kind of hooped. Or they can upgrade to the paid version and keep access to it, right? So they're kind of gamifying, in a sense, that process of going from a free version to a paid version of their product. So again, this is just something that's becoming more and more prevalent, people wanting to have a way of automating the removal of product access so they don't have to be managing it on a day-to-day basis for a group of users, whether it's by date or whether it's by time frame. So in today's tutorial, I want to review a couple of suggestions of how you can possibly manage this in your email service, depending on the service you use, or also through our Zapier app. So I'm going to do my tutorial focusing on ActiveCampaign. Of course, I know not everybody using MemberVault uses ActiveCampaign, but it's a good way for us to give some examples. And at the end of the day, the overall concept is really the same across all email services. And most of the email services I think that we integrate with should have the ability to do what I am showing you in ActiveCampaign. So don't get stuck too much in this tutorial on the fact that I'm doing it in ActiveCampaign if you aren't an ActiveCampaign user yourself, but more so just think of it from the perspective of the concept and the ideas that I'm trying to share with you. So the scenario that I've cooked up for us today is involving the Maximize Your Business course. And we're actually not going to really do much right now in MemberVault. We're going to focus on ActiveCampaign and Zapier more than anything. But I'm building the scenario for you is that we are wanting to limit access to our Maximize Your Business course to start. This is the first scenario in mind. And basically what we're saying is this is like a special training that you get access to for 2 weeks, right? So 14 days. And so there's an urgency around wanting to consume all of the content and do all the things within that product because after 14 days, you no longer have access. So it's a way of creating urgency, a way of creating excitement, and in a sense, gamifying it a bit too. So our scenario is that somebody joins Maximize Your Business course, and then we want to automate the removal of their access after 14 days. So over in ActiveCampaign, I have 2 demo automations I'm going to show you today, but the first one I'm going to start with is this one here. Oh, and of course, internet is now becoming slow, it seems. Come on, internet. Have some big thunderstorms rolling through today, so hopefully it sticks with us. Alrighty, I think we're good. So, and actually, I think I'm going to shut one thing down off of my computer here that might be slowing us up. So, in this automation, what I'm sharing with you is basically the flow and the process. Sorry, I'm also going to kick off my video here just for a second to help. All right. So what I'm sharing with you here again is just the overall idea of a process that you can create. So in this scenario, we have somebody entering into this automation when they get the tag product limited access training. So in this case, it could say like product maximize your business course, since that's our example over in the Maxi Brown MemberVault account. When they join, they enter into this automation because I'm applying this tag within actions over in MemberVault. So I'm not really showing you that step, but that's essentially how they're getting this tag is through actions. They come into this automation. The first thing they get is the traditional welcome email, and it's going to give them all the details about, you have 14 days. make sure you do this, etc. If it's something where maybe there's a paid version of this, you could say something like, if you don't want to lose access, you can always upgrade to the paid version by clicking here. And maybe that goes to, for example, like an invisible version of the product that is a purchased product, that then, somebody has unlimited access to. We see people do this quite often with things like summits, right? If you've ever been involved with an online summit, you typically register for free and you have limited access to the summit content. But if you upgrade to VIP, you have access to everything once it's dripped out, or maybe immediately. Some people do like immediate release of all trainings if you do a VIP paid version of a summit ticket. So lots of different concepts here around, or use cases, I would say, for this. But they get the welcome email. And then because this is a limited time access for 14 days, they come down here into a wait period for 14 days. And this is a very simple automation in the sense of like the linear flow here. After the 14 days, I'm using the webhook step here in MemberVault, here in ActiveCampaign, to call the MemberVault webhook. And this particular webhook, I'm just going to open up here, see if we can scroll through and you can see it. This is actually, instead of adding a user to a product, it is removing a user from the product. So I'm going to scoot back to MemberVault really quickly here. And if you've never added a webhook into any of your flows in your email service, you're going to find that information under integrations and advanced. Now, not all of the email services that we integrate with have this ability to add contact information or update contact information from your email service to MemberVault. So you'll see which ones do have this option: ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, Mailchimp, Drip, Infusionsoft, and Entreport. So if you currently use Aweber or MailerLite, those two email services don't have the option at this time to call webhooks to MemberVault. So a webhook, just in real short here, for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, a webhook is essentially a phone call between two platforms. So it's ActiveCampaign picking up a phone, dialing that webhook number, which is in our case a URL, calling MemberVault to say, hey, MemberVault, Katrina needs to have her access to this product removed. Or in the case of adding a person, it's, hey, MemberVault, if Katrina doesn't have a user account yet related to this email address, please create it for her and also give her access to this product, right? So it's all product specific webhook URLs. And in this case, I'm going to come under ActiveCampaign, and we have a little webhook tool here where we can grab the webhook URLs that we need. If I was adding a person to a product, I would be using this version of the tool here. But in our case, we're talking about removing access. So I actually want to use the remove user from product tool. And so I'm going to use the drop-down menu here and select the product in question, because again, each webhook URL is product specific. And I'm going to click show URL. So when I say product specific, you'll see at the end of every webhook URL that there's a course ID number. Back in the day, like 4 years ago, we used to refer to everything instead of products as courses. So this still references course ID, but please just know that it's product ID. It doesn't matter what type of product it is. It's just the way that we reference the actual unique ID number for the product in question. So product ID number 3 points to maximize your business course. And again, because we picked the remove user webhook, we see that reference here to remove user. So I end up grabbing this URL, copying this, and then I take it back over to my automation here in ActiveCampaign, and I paste it into the URL field for the webhook step that's in my automation. So we have this webhook here, and we know that this is what's going to remove the person's access. Now, I'm going to jump back to MemberVault for a quick second, because I do want to clarify here for the other email tools. In the case of ActiveCampaign, you saw that there was the ability to have the remove user webhook. In ConvertKit, this process is done a little bit differently. And if you search our knowledge base, you'll find a specific knowledge base article on the ConvertKit process for webhooks. Their difference is that you actually create the webhook by requesting it in MemberVault over to ConvertKit, and then ConvertKit sets it up. So it's a little bit of a different process, but you still have the ability to remove user from product in the ConvertKit webhook process. MailChimp, same thing. If we come down here, you have add user and remove user at your beck and disposal. And then if we get to Drip, you'll see here that this is just a single endpoint URL. In Drip, they call it an endpoint instead of a webhook. Ultimately, the same thing. Same with Infusionsoft, they call it an HTTP post, which is kind of more of the original term for a webhook. So different terms, same thing. But in this case, you only have the one tool here to pick your URL that you need. So if we were going to go ahead and let's pretend we were a Drip user and we pick Maximize Your Business course and click Show URL, we basically see the same structure of that webhook URL that we saw for ActiveCampaign. And by default, it says Add User here in the command section. If you are a Drip user, and this is true to say too for Infusionsoft users, if you want to do the same thing, but with removing a person's access from a product in terms of the scenario we're talking about today, you would still use this URL. All you need to do though is replace the word add with remove. So even though it's not provided here within the webhook selection tool here, you can still manipulate this URL and just reference remove instead of the word add, and it will do the same thing that we're able to do for those tools that give us the option to pick either one. So I just wanted to highlight that in case anyone on the call or watching the replay is Drip or Infusionsoft users. And actually, I think Entreport's the same as well. So you only have the add user webhook URL that's provided for Drip, Infusionsoft, or Entreport. All you have to do though is swap out add, replace it with remove, and that alone will just remove the person's access instead of adding the user. So back to our example here. So again, they get the welcome email when they get tagged and enter this automation. They wait for 14 days. Then automatically we're running this webhook call, which is going to remove their access. And then we have another email that's basically saying, hey, Katrina, so sorry, your access is over, but here's how you can continue engaging, or here's the next step, book a call, whatever that next step might be for your business flow. And then down here, just some follow-up, nothing really to point out here. You could, depending on your scenario, if you're, for example, doing like a challenge of some kind where you're trying to entice somebody to buy the paid version and stay with it and not lose access, you could certainly, like within this 14-day period here, pepper in a few kind of like reminder emails and, maybe an email on day 12 instead that's saying, hey, don't forget, Katrina, you're going to lose access to this product in 2 days if you don't upgrade to the paid version or something like that. So that is a scenario here in ActiveCampaign if you were looking at something that is more evergreen. And when I say that, I mean the access here is based on when somebody joins for 14 days. So it doesn't matter if I join today, my access ends in 14 days from today. Or if I join on May 1st, then my access is ending in the middle of May. In this particular case, if this was something that was like time specific, date specific, I should say, you could always change your wait condition in any of our email services that we integrate with to be a date instead of a time frame. So again, if let's just say this scenario instead wasn't evergreen, but we were giving access to this product for May 1st to May 15th, then instead of having a 14-day wait, we would actually just want this wait to be for a specific date. So we would change up these conditions. In this case, we can do like wait until, and then I won't go into this for the sake of time, but here in ActiveCampaign, I would create a filter here to narrow down to May 15th at whatever desired time to hold people at this step until that time and date becomes true. When it becomes May 15th at say 12 p.m. or whatever it is, oh, here, I guess I should set it back. It's not going to, it's not gonna want me to get out of this until I reset it. So there we go. So when we have this set to a date versus a time frame, when that date and time become true, then the people who are here waiting will get pushed through and they'll go through the same steps. So this concept here that I'm trying to highlight with this automation can be done based on a time frame or a set date if you wanted to. So I know a lot of people have really enjoyed doing that kind of very event specific, like access from May 1st to May 7th. And you know what, if you love it, you can grab the full version or the unlimited version of access, for a discount if you do so before May 7th, right? So they're using that kind of like specific access over a specific period of time to really create that energy around gaining access to the product in hopes that people will love it so much that they then upgrade to the paid version. So the other thing I want to highlight, the other scenario I want to talk about is in regards to a cancellation. So I'm going to use actually this I'll just use this. Actually, I had another automation that I started, but didn't really get to finish. So we can use that as our demo for what I want to share next. So this is going to be a scheduled membership cancellation. The scenario here is that, somebody has canceled their membership with me and they need their access removed. Don't look at this too much. It hasn't been changed yet, but they need their access removed on a given date. So in most cases, if you're running a membership and somebody cancels, you're not typically ending their access that same very day. In most cases, they're going to maintain access until the end of that billing cycle because everything is really billed forward, right? If somebody pays for access to my membership on May 1st, well, they've essentially paid for access for the month of May. So I wouldn't really want to take away their access in MemberVault until May 30th or whatever that magic date is. In MemberVault, when you go to cancel somebody's subscription, you can choose to remove their access from the product right then and there, or you can just leave it so that they continue to have access. But there isn't currently a way for you to schedule when access is removed. So that's why you would need to have a process within your email service, or again, Zapier, which I'll highlight for you in a second here. When it comes to something that's date specific to a particular person, you're probably going to want to look at using a custom field within your email service. So if I come here into a contact example, which is my own, you'll see that in ActiveCampaign, I've actually created a custom field here for membership cancellation date. So now when somebody reaches out to cancel, I can come into this custom field within their contact profile in my email service, and I can update this custom field specific to this person to note when their actual cancellation date is. So let's just say it's going to be April 30th. Okay, so they've basically got another 3 days of access or whatnot, a little bit less than that. But so when I click save, this now tells the system that my cancellation date is April 30th. So now in my automation, what I can do is actually change this trigger. Well, I'm going to go back here and change this trigger. And I'm going to come down here to date-based. And now again, this might be different depending on the type of email service you're using, but date-based is something that most have the option to use, I should say. Most email services will have this functionality. So in this case, I'm looking for a very specific year, month, and day to match my conditions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust these so that I'm changing things based on my cancellation date here. So I want to actually change this to 0 days on the membership cancellation date. And I'm telling the system to check daily. So it's going to check every single day at 3 p.m., for example, if today is the cancellation date set in this person's contact profile. So again, it's very specific to the person because it's a custom field. So if Ben's cancellation date is May 1st, well, when it's April 30th, it would be my cancellation date, and that will trigger this automation, but it wouldn't trigger for Bent until tomorrow when it becomes May 1st. You can also, this is just a little tip here in ActiveCampaign, you can change this so that like you're doing it at like 6 a.m., for example, in the contact's time zone or your own time zone. So it's happening typically at the start of the day. So in the morning, the system's checking, is today the cancellation date for anyone? If it is, great, bring them into this automation. So I'm going to click Save Start there. Let that populate for a second. And then we see this in a much more simple term here. Date is contact's membership cancellation date. So we know that this is going to trigger the automation when it becomes my contact's cancellation date, which in our case is April 30th. So in this case, I probably don't want the welcome email. That doesn't make sense. So we'll delete that. We don't need any form of a wait in this case because this is all triggered by the cancellation date that we set in the custom field. But in this case, I'm going to keep the webhook because that's what's going to remove the person's access from the membership product. And then I can have any assortment really of follow-up steps. For example, I have this process in place for a couple of my private clients who need a similar kind of process. And when we remove their access, I will say one that I know of does it a couple days in advance of their membership cancellation date, and we send them a reminder that their cancellation is about to take place in 24 hours, and we give them the opportunity to rejoin or something like that. So you could do something like that, but for simple sake, if you have them entering on the day in question, you're going to remove their access right away. And maybe you'll go ahead and do a courtesy of sending them an email to remind them that their access has now been removed, letting them know how to contact you, maybe in some cases offering a coupon code to join again, but maybe at a discounted price. There's lots of different things. Maybe you're directing them to other products that might be of interest to them. So this is really kind of a courtesy and nurture email in this regard. The other thing you might want to do that I do quite frequently is I send myself a notification. So I could go ahead and right after we remove their access, one of the steps could be to send myself a notification. And that notification maybe is reminding me that there's other things to do. Maybe I need to remove them from a Facebook group. Maybe I need to, I don't know, send them a receipt or something like that, right? Depending on your membership, there might be other areas where you need to remove access or follow up. So adding in a notification for yourself here is a really good idea. So again, this is just a really quick look into how you could manage something like this if you have a specific date for somebody, a particular person who needs access removed. The day they reach out wanting to cancel their membership, you don't need to worry about making yourself a reminder on a Post-it note or in your task system to come back in on April 30th and remove their access from MemberVault. You can let your email service take care of that for you by having this automation trigger when that cancellation date becomes today's date. So really quickly here, because I want to make sure we have great time for Q&A, we're going to quickly take a peek at Zapier. And I want to highlight Zapier, not just for those who don't use an email service that those who use an email service that MemberVault doesn't currently integrate with, but also for those of us who do use email services that integrate with MemberVault. There still can be a use case for wanting to use Zapier to help us with our processes. So in this scenario, we're going to look here at a Zap that I've already started to create. And I am taking this from the perspective of if maybe you're somebody who uses a different email tool, or you use a tool that doesn't necessarily allow for you to remove somebody's access from within your email service, like ActiveCampaign. So again, MailerLite or Aweber, or maybe somebody who's using Flowdesk, which we don't integrate with at any point currently, although we hope to in future. We're looking at the same type of scenario that we have people coming into a product where we want to delay access until a certain time or a certain date. So you could actually have this process in place using Zapier, even though you use ActiveCampaign if you want to. For some people, this maybe seems simpler to them, hard to say, but you don't have to use ActiveCampaign. You could use this method if you wanted. In this case, and I'm not going to go too deep into like how to use Zapier. If you haven't used Zapier before and you're keen to learn how to do so, visit our knowledge base article on our Zapier app. And we link there to their getting started guide, which is a great tutorial on just getting familiar with using Zapier. But essentially, we're using this to deliver the same process I just showed you in ActiveCampaign. When somebody is added to my product here in MemberVault, this is my trigger. I'm going to look at this quickly under our setup here. When somebody joins our product, Maximize Your Business course, that's going to trigger this Zap. Now, of course, this Zap isn't currently on, but it's going to trigger our Zap for us and bring somebody into this, whoever has joined our product. And I'm not going to, it'll test the trigger. I'll just do that so we can close it up. It's probably going to pull a random name. Yep. So that's an example of somebody who's recently joined that product. They are now our test subject here in this Zap. But we've tested our trigger now, so that it's going to start whenever somebody joins our Maximize Business course product. Then what we want to do is we actually want to add in a step that is with a Zapier app. So I'm not using another platform here. I'm actually using a tool that Zapier provides, which is their Delay by Zapier app. So in this case, I'm picking the delay option, and the event I can do is delay for, which is a set period of time. So again, we could do 14 days, or delay until. Delay until is going to be more date specific, or is date specific, I should say. 4 is when you're looking at more of that evergreen time frame. So again, 14 days, etc. Delay until is when we're going to get more specific. I will say, if you do go with delay for and look at doing something that's more evergreen from a time frame perspective, in Zapier, you can only, I believe you can only do up to 2 months of a wait. I might be wrong on that. I know with delay until, we can only do a date that is no more than a month in the future. So if we look at that, we're going to stick with delay until. Excuse me, and you'll see that I've already kind of set this up. So the next thing we have to do is tell Zapier what date and time we want this, this delay to basically hold people until, and then continue forward. So we're saying May 15th at 11:59. Without referencing the time zone, it's going to default to the time zone that your Zapier account is set in. So for me, that is Eastern time. If I wanted it to say be Pacific time, to be a little bit more universal to time zones, I could just do PT like that, and that will signify that it's supposed to be in Pacific time. So if you want to know how you can reference dates in terms of like what format, etc., is available in Zapier, they actually have these, wherever you see these kind of little faint icons, they actually link to little tips. And I'm not sure if you can see that on the screen, but a little tip that pops out. But if you click on it further, it actually will take you to one of their knowledge base articles, which will give you even more context. So for example, rather than doing like a date specific like this, I could actually do tomorrow at 9 p.m. And that would actually work if I wanted it just to be tomorrow at 9 p.m. So if you wanted, again, to do something a little bit more evergreen but specific, you could do something like that. So just a little idea there of what's possible. We're not going to worry about this particular step here. This is really if you're going to process things that were in the past. So if this date said was April 26th, for example, then this would matter. But in our case, it's the default setting that we can leave. So we'll go ahead and click continue. And when I test this, it's just testing to make sure that it reads the date correctly, which it does, which is awesome. So I know that this is going to work when the time comes that somebody is waiting in this Zap for that date to process. The last step is that action step, and that's the step of removing the person's access. So once I pick my MemberVault account from Zapier and I get to the setup action, I need to do 2 things. I need to map the email address. And it's not a specific email address, but the email field. And this is how MemberVault knows what user in your MemberVault account to remove access from. The email address is the unique identifier for each MemberVault user. So we need to tell Zapier where it can find this person's email address to know who we're talking about. So we're going to actually get that from our first step when the person was added to the Zap by joining our product. So if we click on this, MemberVault collects and shares 3 points of data for every user: the email address, first name, and last name. So in this case, I'm going to map the email field. It shows us the example for the test example that we pulled in, but that's just kind of ghost text, if you will. It's placeholder. What we're really focused on is it's telling us that it's going to pull the contact or the user's email address from the email data it gets in step 1. So now we know that we've connected to the right user. We need to tell it what product we're removing it from, or removing them from. And in this case, again, it's the Maximize Your Business course. And then we can just go ahead and we may want to test it if you wanted to. In this case, I don't, because I don't want to remove this person's access from the product. But this is how I would do it using Zapier. Now I could go ahead and turn this on. It's not applicable for me to turn on since it's not actually a process we're using. It's just an example. The one caveat I do want to highlight here is that although this does work, and this is a very reliable system, this is what's considered a multi-step zap in Zapier. And a multi-step zap means that it's got more than a trigger and an automation or an action. In our case, we have a trigger, a second step, a second action, and then the final action. So this is considered a multi-step zap, which are not available if you have a free Zapier account. If you have a free Zapier account and you want to set up processes like this that are more than just a trigger and a single action, you would need to upgrade. But I think right now their base plan is like $19 a month or something like that. And you can do a lot with Zapier beyond just things like this with MemberVault. You can update Google spreadsheets, you can send emails on your behalf. The sky's the limit, honestly, with Zapier. So, but just keep in mind that to do something like this, you would need to have a paid account in order to allow you to have multi-step zaps. And again, that's having just more than just a trigger and a single action. For example, in some of the Zapier accounts that I manage, I have one zap I just built the other day that has 27 steps. So in that case, that person is making full use of their paid account, but it is quite a robust zap. Although most people are really just used to seeing simple trigger and action zaps like this. So just a caveat, if you are keen on doing this, you would need to upgrade to a paid plan with Zapier, but you could probably go with the lowest tier plan to suffice your needs. Alrighty, I'm going to stop there.